Right, part 2, wiring for the dual secondary tank fitted. Now I've seen here waterproof plug. That's for the outputs. There'll be 4 actual fuel solenoids in here, 2 for the return line, 2 for the main line to the engine. There's the waterproof connector for the return line, which I'll fit along this side here. The main line will be on the other side of the beam. There's a couple of mounting points you can see down there, centre of screen 1 there, and there's one on the other side in the same position but on the other side. So I'll make a bracket up to go into those 2 and then just go from there. They're the 3 return lines. Basically the way it sets up is if when you switch over, you're actually running from the auxiliary tank using that fuel pump and sender, and returning back to the same tank, not mixing the fuel and transferring the fuel over. So they're operating as 2 individual tanks. Electronically, underneath, I pulled all the wiring loom off from underneath and rerun the wires through the original wiring loom and then retaped it all up. Fuel lines wise, there's not really much I can show you. Your fuel vapor line is just set up as a T-junction there. You can just see it there. You've already shown you the fillers. The main lines in are just basically, once I put the solenoids in, I'll do another video of that. I think he's trying to refocus all the time, sorry about that. As far as wiring's concerned, I've still got to get a switch and a relay. But, what I've done, the Gen 1s have got normally is a sitting button here for an air vent underneath, which I've pulled out and then riveted shut, and I'll permanently glue it in because I don't need an air vent. I've got air conditioning. It's just another place that's going to leak. So what I've done is actually fitted 2 40 amp relays in there. One's the crossover for the fuel tanks, and the other's the crossover for the solenoids, like the fuel cut-off solenoids. This one here, it's actually an 8-pin. 2 separate circuits either side. You've got your active and negative activation circuit here, and then you've got your 3 pins crossover relay. This is a timed one from 1 to 60 minutes. I'm not going to be using this one. I'm actually going to be using another one identical to that, but just a standard one. This setup's good to have this sort of thing. If you're using a transfer tank, using the pump and the auxiliary tank to transfer to the main tank, you can use one of these and set it up so that you throw the switch, and basically it'll just keep going until whatever you've set the timer at, which is very easily to move. You can see it there. You can move that around. Just work out how long it takes and times it to empty the tank, and then set the timer to that. That way, from a full tank to an empty tank, it'll automatically switch itself off. But I'm not doing that with this particular one. I'm running 2 separate ones, so I've got more relays on order of the same type, but without the timer. This, because it's 2 separate circuits, we've basically got the yellow wire here as our activation. Of course, black's our earth. That's for the activation circuits. On the fuel side of it, the fuel pump side of it, I've interrupted the circuit actually in the wiring loom. I have the power coming through the main fuel line is actually power in, and then the 87A, which is on all the time, goes back to the original wiring loom, and then the 87A, which when I've switched over the fuel, will actually switch off the main tank, and then switch on with a white wire the auxiliary tank pump. Same deal with the solenoid crossover. just to be sure, look, I've run two 10 amp wires, one 10 amp wire to each solenoid. They only draw 1.5 amps. It's more than enough. But just to be sure, I've separated them just in case. So I can always play with them later. If you wanted to, you could probably put in a third or fourth relay and be able to transfer from one tank to another, which I seriously did think about. However, how often do you puncture a tank? It's rare, and look, by the time you've punctured the tank and it's dripping, it drips. It doesn't go gushing out everywhere. Yeah, you'll lose a little bit, but look, it's not going to leave you stranded. So I decided it's just going to be too much stuffing around and not bother with that. So look, I've gone there, the same thing, the red and the white wire at the other end, which is exactly the same colour at the actual solenoids in the back, at the plugs. That's again is the you got your power in, and then the power out, which is on all the time, which is the return line and solenoid, fuel solenoid and main outgoing fuel solenoid for the main tank. And then of course the switched one, when it's switched over, is to the auxiliary side. So it switches one side off, switches the other off, close it, so you're always using from the same line. This one here, wire with 8 pin, two different circuits. One side is from using both tanks. One side is for the fuel light, warning light. The other side is for the actual fuel gauge. Again, the always on fuel gauge and fuel sender at rest is the main tank, and then when it switches over, it switches off the main senders and fuel light from the main tank and switches on the fuel sender and fuel light from the auxiliary tank. So basically, using that setup, I don't have to put in any extra gauges. I can use the existing gauges, and actually on the dash all there is, which will go down in there next to there, I've ordered it but hasn't turned up yet, same type of switch. Just when it's switched off, you're running normally through the main tank, switch it on, everything switches over to the auxiliary tank, pumps, solenoids and everything, and you just use the same sender. Now under here, you can see with this wiring, I've used a few plugs, obviously to come in, and you've got the fuel sender and sense and light, and then you've got the cut-off solenoids. You've got the main fuel pump, tank 1, tank 2 there. Phone won't focus. That's it there, and then of course this one here is your switching circuits and main power feed circuits to run the pump solenoids. Now from the pump solenoids, so the fuel solenoids, not the pump, what we've got under here is I've got an additional 40 amp relay which takes power directly from the battery. If I can just get my phone twisted up there and back-handed, you can see it there. Okay, so when I switch my ignition on, that will, I'll go on, I think the radio's on, so just bear with me. And you should see, yeah, see the green LED come on and on the thing, which lets me know it's getting power. Turn him off, turn him on. So that's the ignition on. That's the main, not the pump, because that's through the original circuit, just split into the two pumps. But that's for the power of the solenoids, fuel cut-off solenoids. And the ignition wire, switching wire for the actual pumps is just through the ignition switch. Picked up a wire there, a blue one from the ignition switch, and then out, back down through to the circuit up here, right there. Again, you can see all them there, all easy to go, plug straight in. Yeah, it's a little bit mucking around, but it's basically set and forget. See, there's the original black with the white. Oh, the phone will focus or not, guys and gals. That you can see it there, the black with the white stripe, center of screen. Yeah, it just focused. Then you got the yellow and green for the fuel sender, back up to the original. So
we've split it from there where it was. And of course here you can see the other end where it comes into the actual relays. Your phone into the relays and circuits, and of course then the fuel pump ones. And just so you're asking, that one there, it's just the one there, that's just me trailer power wire. I've put a plug on, I haven't done anything with that yet. That gives me 12 volt power once I've connected it at the actual trailer plug for reversing lights or pod lights or something, whatever I want to put in there. And I've just added a bit of extra wire here because that power for that main relay, I guess it's a 50 amp wire, like 6mm wire, because that will piggyback off there to the additional roof light wires, which is this light here. It goes to my roof rack for spotties and light bars and all that sort of thing. And I'll get that sorted at a later date. Not worried about that just yet. But the wiring's there ready to go. I'll probably put a couple of plugs or something on it. But yeah, that's how it works, how I did the wiring. And yeah, and of course that'll sit all the way up in there. You can see the hole where that thing was, the bolt holes. I'll seal it up properly so I never get it leaking again, including the back of that. And this will be in a position sort of upside down almost on that angle. These two relays won't fall out. There's a lot of tension holding them in place, but at least I can change them. This one here would, however, this one would, if I can get it to focus on there, sorry, would fall out, but the actual holder, you can see there, right there, on both sides. I'll get a bit more light there, might be able to see it better. There's wind, no. Anyway, there's my torch, might be able to show you better with that. There we go. See that? Right there, the phone will focus. These holders, they've got a little either side. Another one there, you can see just that little slot just there. You can put a spring clip in them to keep goes over the top to keep the things in place so that they don't fall out. And these relays, because they're spaced, they can only go in one way, so you can never get them wrong. And I'll just put a bit of spring wire over the top of that to stop it from falling out once it's up there. So there we go, that's the wiring for the twin tank use with the twin solenoids. Once I get the solenoids in place and the switch in place and everything, I'll do a third one up and just show you how that looks. And if I can feel up to it, get under there and show you how it's done underneath. Cool. Thanks for watching.